Hello, I'm Dictatress, at Dictatress on Twitter, if you haven't found me already. Today's JOI assignment is called Patricide. I'm going to read you a little speech and go over a couple things before I give you your assignment. Be patient till the last, Femocrats, sisters and lovers. Hear me for my cause, and be silent that you may hear. Believe me for my honor, and have respect for my honor, that you may believe. Censure me in your wisdom, and awake your senses, that you may better judge. If there be any in this assembly, any dear friend of patriarchy, to her I say that my love of men is no less than yours. If then that friend demand why I rose against patriarchy, this is my answer. Not that I loved men less, but that I loved female virtue more. Had you rather that patriarchy were living and that all women live in the lower levels of a caste system governed by men, than that patriarchy were dead, to live all as a female ruling class of femocrats. As patriarchy loved me, I weep for it. As it was fortunate, I rejoice at it. As it was valiant, I honor it. But as it were a tyrannical warmonger, I slew it. There are tears for its love, joy for its fortune, honor for its valor, and death for its violence. What woman here is so base that she would be its victim? If any, speak, for her I have offended. Who is here so rude that would not be a femocrat? If any, speak, for her I have offended. Who is here so vile that will not love themselves as women? If any, speak, for her I have offended. Some of you probably know that's an adaptation of a Shakespeare speech given by Brutus after he kills Julius Caesar, the great Caesar. The great Caesar who made himself dictator in perpetuity of what was the Roman Republic, and after that became the Roman Empire, always to be ruled by emperors from then on. I wanted to talk about patriarchy and the death of patriarchy. It brought to mind also King Louis XIV. On his deathbed, they brought his great-grandson in, the future king, and he gave him some advice. And one of the things he said was, I have loved war too much. I think that that is a fitting epitaph to the patriarchy. I have loved war too much. That would be the perfect epitaph to the patriarchy. Louis XIV was also called Louis the Great, Louis the Sun King, all these great men. And then I wanted to talk about Cyrus the Great. He was the king of Persia who founded the Persian Empire. And he had conquered many nations, including the Babylonians. And then he set his sights on the great steppe that he wanted to conquer also. So he headed out to conquer the people of the great steppes. And there he met Tomiris, the queen of one of the Saka tribes. They were offshoots from Scythian tribes, the ancient Amazons. She united all of the nomadic tribes of the great steppe, and they faced off with the great Cyrus. And according to the best historical sources, including Herodotus, Queen Tomiris defeated Cyrus in battle. And King Cyrus the Great was killed in that battle. After the fighting, Queen Tomiris had her soldiers look for Cyrus's body. And she's quoted as saying, "If he is so bloodthirsty, let him drink his fill of blood." And she filled a vat with blood and decapitated the great Cyrus and put his decapitated head in the vat full of blood. And you may try to say that this is not true because men always try to refute these stories. But then what comes to mind is Joan of Arc and how she led the French army to its victories that finally put an end to the 100 Years' War between England and France. And how her story was buried, and it had been hidden for centuries and dismissed as a myth. But because they burned her alive at the stake for being a heretic, they had to hold a trial. And the whole trial was carefully recorded and documented. And the trial transcripts were later unearthed. So they had no way to deny her story. Otherwise, it would have all been called just a myth, like the great Tomiris. And I ask you, why have we never heard of great Queen Tomiris? Because men have made a concerted effort to deny women education, professions, the right to vote, and even their own stories. And so this week, we pledge to put an end to patriarchy. Because women can never thrive as long as there's a patriarchy in place. So this week, your assignment is to have one huge orgasm after you watch this recording, or it can be in a couple days, a day or two if you want to prepare, but I want it to be a symbolic death. So this orgasm will be treated as if it is your very last orgasm on earth. I want you to prepare your mindset, get in the right mind frame before you do it, and think about it truly as if it were the last orgasm you were ever going to be granted or be able to have on earth. And then you may have your orgasm in honor of our pledge to bring down the patriarchy. Then I want you to mourn for the next couple days and mourn the death of the patriarchy and everything it's meant to you as men your sense of superiority and entitlement. I want you to think about all the arguments for the superiority of men. Oh, well, men have more achievements because men cheat. They didn't even let women have an education or professions. How could they compete? You know the rules. If people cheat in competitions, they are eliminated. So then I want you to recuperate and be refreshed by the end of the week, because I don't want you drained as men. I want you submissive to women, and I want you fierce. I just want you to be Democrats who serve women. And I don't want to hear any of that about not all men, because men cannot be trusted as a whole. So believe me, you need to put your trust in women. And at the end of this week, the weekend of the 10th, 11th, and 12th, I'll be doing a call again for the Democracy Come Tax. And when you've paid your come tax at the end of the week or on the weekend, then you may have a second orgasm for the week.